Trevor, thank you so very much for joining me on Sage and Summit's first podcast. We'll be sharing stories about ordinary leaders with extraordinary wisdom and practice about leadership in a turbulent world. We're looking forward to offering a series of conversations with gems of leaders that we find in the most unexpected places. And Trevor Muir, co-founder, past CEO, current president of SurePoint Group, is our first extraordinary leader. Trevor, thank you very much for joining me here. Please share just a brief background about how this whole SurePoint thing started.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me on to here. I super appreciate it. We started SurePoint in 2003, myself and 9 friends from Grand Prairie, Alberta. We grew up, all of us in the area. We had a guy that we all knew that pulled us all together to start SurePoint, and the intention of it was really just to have a place where we could all get together, go to work, have some fun, and employ some folks and do some good things. And that really was the foundation of why we started SurePoint. And we just, when we came together, right place, right time. I remember our first year, we thought, we did our budgeting session with some quads and some beers. We went camping actually out in the bush and talked about our budget for the second year. And we had, I think we did $4 million the first year. It was like, well, we'll just double everything. We'll do $8 million the next year. And we did. And we did that actually every year until 2008. But that first year, I remember us talking and saying, we could maybe have 40 people one day. Like, wouldn't that be extraordinary if we grew to that size? And as you know, we grew through that pretty quickly and peaked at about 300 by 250 to 300 around by 2008. So it's quite a journey.
That was record-breaking growth. That is fantastic. So in this journey of rapid growth, there were a few critical points where you had to have some brave, transparent conversations with your team. And I think in our first meeting, it was your capacity to have really brave, transparent conversations with your team that just struck me as completely extraordinary.
Yeah.
Would you share some of that?
I'd be happy to share on that. So in 2008, we ended up selling the majority of SurePoint actually to a private equity group out of the US. And 2008 ended up being a tough year in the industry. And so had some struggles once we were acquired. And we had continued to grow though from 2003 to 2012. We went from $4 million to over $90 million. But the last 3 years, 2008 to 2012, 3-4 years, things got pretty tough at SurePoint. Actually, culturally, we were disintegrating. We had a high revenue, but we weren't actually converting that into profit. And in 2013, I got asked by the board if I would take the CEO position. And I turned it down. I actually was planning on leaving SurePoint to go and do another venture. And I had got a call. I was over in Australia. We had some business over there. And I had given 3 months notice to our executive team and had said, we wouldn't let the rest of the company know until the last month. I was a cultural ambassador and a cheerleader in the organization. And so I was in Australia and I got a call from the board asking me if I would take the CEO role. And I said, no. I said, I'm leaving. Like, I'm actually done in 5 or 6 weeks. And so I came back from there and talked to my wife and said, oh, they offered me the CEO position. And she, of course, said, don't take it. She's like, we don't need this. You don't have to do this. I know I'll never see you. And I said, I've already turned it down. And then she, a couple of days later, I got a call, or maybe the next day, I got a call from one of the board members again and asked if I would really consider it. And I went home and told my wife that they had asked me again. And she again said, well, I don't want you to take it. And I said, well, I've already turned it down again. But she asked me something that night. She said, how will you feel if you don't? And I was like, I said, honestly, I'll feel like I ran away from my family and this team just because I can, my family and friends. And I said, a lot of people quit really good jobs to come here. And a lot did because I told them we were different, and we were different. And then, we were way better. And then arguably we were worse in a lot of ways. And I said, I feel like I have a chance to make a difference, and that I'd be running away just because I can. So I decided after that conversation that I would take the role. So got a hold of the private equity group and the board and said, yeah, I'm interested. I'll take it. Not understanding truly what I was getting into. I knew that we had some financial challenges. I knew it was pretty bad culturally. We weren't doing very well. I knew that. But I'm an instrument mechanic by background. I'm a tradesperson and happened to, jump into this business that went really, really well, and grew a division, quite a bit and was profitable. But I didn't know how to be a CEO. But I did know that the thing that had made us successful in the beginning was that we really cared about each other, and our folks, they rallied and they went to work hard. And when I took the role as the CEO, about 10 weeks in, and I'll condense this, but about 10 weeks into the position, I ended up getting a letter of forbearance in my inbox, and I didn't know what that was. But when I looked at it, it was evident that it was not good. And basically, the bank at the time, we had broke our covenants. I didn't know anything about covenants. I didn't know about banking agreements. I didn't know about balance sheets. But I had read this letter, and it basically said we need to inject. I think it's about $3 million of cash into the business, into equity, find a new bank, or they were going to call our loan in 4.5 months. And we were losing money. Like it was a really tough spot for SurePoint already. We kept bouncing off our line. They had also reduced our line of credit and froze it one night, the night before they sent the letter of forbearance. They swept the account. And they put us in a position where I was like, we're in trouble and I don't know what to do. And I agonized about it. My ego was going crazy. Like I was like, it was all about me at that time. I was like, I'm the new CEO. I'm going to be the guy that bankrupt SurePoint, all of this stuff. And about a week after we got the letter, I woke up, and I'd been waking up in the middle of the night, like stressed and full of anxiety. And I woke up in the middle of the night on a Tuesday. And instead of feeling stressed, I was like, wait a minute, I've been thinking of this all wrong. And I got inspired. And I was like, I've been asking for a way to rally our team and rebuild our culture quickly. And our folks and our team rally around crisis better than anyone in the world, any organization in the world. I always had said that. And there is no bigger crisis than SurePoint not being in business in 4.5 months, no longer existing. And so I was like, this is exactly what I've been praying for. And it's a gift. And I coined it the gift of forbearance. And that morning, I started hitting all the branches. And during that week, I went to all of the branches. I got in front of almost all the people. I went out into the field and talked to people. I spoke to them in the offices. I had coffee with people in their towns. I told them to bring their spouses. And I basically told everybody this, like, hey, I'm Trev. I'm the new CEO. And most of the people knew me. Said, most of you know me. And I'm way over my head in this role. And I said, and I want to apologize. I'm really sorry that we screwed this thing up. Those of you who've been here a long time know how good it was. And we didn't mean to. And I know you feel like we don't care, but we do. And, I'm going to do everything I can to prove it. And then I said, and there's one more thing I want you all to know. We were recently received a letter of forbearance. And I don't know how to explain that very well, other than things are going to get a lot worse before they get better. And if we don't do a lot of things right in the next 4.5 months, there might not be a SurePoint. And then I said this, and I've decided to stay. I want you all to make the decision that's best for you and your family, but I've decided to stay. And I want you to stay too. And if you stay, I have no idea how we'll get through it. I just know that we will. And on the other side of it, I promise you that we'll build a better culture than we've ever had. And everyone's, well, not everyone, but like almost everyone stayed. And then I went to our vendors. And I was told, don't talk to your vendors about being in forbearance. And I pulled them in and told them, we're in forbearance. I told them the story, like, and we need your help. We're not paying you because we don't have any money, but this is the plan and we need your help. And most of them helped us, and then went to some clients and told them the same thing, like, we need your help. and our clients helped. They quick paid us on some stuff. They got money moved forward faster for us on invoices. And it proved to me that give people permission to do the right thing, they will do the right thing. And also we went on a mission to prove that caring is a competitive advantage. And I used to say that lots. And we rebuilt SurePoint on a foundational core value of caring. We care is our foundational core value. And I said, I want to prove, at least to myself, that caring is a competitive advantage in life, in business, and certainly in our industry. And you know a lot of the stories of SurePoint and what we've overcome as a team, and how our team has done it by truly caring about each other and the folks in the community.
This is the part of the story that I just really admire so much, because foundational value of we care, but you first cared before you coined the phrase the phrase we care, because in so many companies values is just like pretty words, motherhood and apple pie that lives on a wall, and it means nothing. But you cared before you coined the words. We care as a core value, and that's the way we live. And then that massive intervention, being so vulnerable and open and transparent with your team, and to say, listen, we screwed up. I don't know how it happened. I know we'll get through it. And I'm staying because I care. And that is so fantastic. And then after that, that whole stakeholder integration into your system, because they became partners. And what you said is like, when you allow people to do the right thing, we invite people to do the right thing, they do that.
Yes.
And that is so contrary to so much practice. As you become an executive, you have to be in a certain way, and you have to know all the answers, and invulnerable hero status. But SurePoint is thriving right now because you did didn't do any of that. So it's super cool.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of growth, and it hasn't come without its challenges and struggles. And culturally, we did things extremely well, and we did them right. I believe that I talk about this lots. Authenticity and vulnerability are strengths, and as a human being, and certainly as a leader and in leadership. And the fact that I'm vulnerable doesn't diminish my manliness or my ability to lead, or my strength, or my resolve or resiliency. However, as SurePoint grew, there were things that we needed. There were things that I wasn't actually good at. I was really good at culture and bringing people together, and we needed to bring in some folks that really knew good things about processes and help us to put structure and KPIs and some things in the organization to help us truly thrive.
Yeah.
But the key is not to lose that. That feeling of SurePoint. I always have said to people, and I've had them go and prove it. SurePoint has a heartbeat, and when we're healthy, you can feel it when you walk into one of our offices or branches. And oftentimes, we struggle with some stuff. I mean, things are really, really good, and then they aren't. But we're a company that is willing to have the tough conversations and fight the fight to get through the other side, to keep this thing going and to keep building a company that does care.
So during COVID, you took another extraordinary step with that core value of yours. Please do share that story. I love it.
Yeah, so COVID was interesting, obviously, for everyone in the world. And we had just bought the company back, myself and 15 other people in SurePoint, and with the help of private equity group, ATB Capital, or private equity out of Alberta, actually helped us. And then a private individual investor came on board to help us buy it back. And that was in 2018. And our intention was to become an employee-owned organization. And then 2019, so we took on a bunch of debt again, and could buy the business back, and things are going pretty good. 2019 is a decent year, and 2020 is looking like it could be the best year that we've ever had. And April of 2020 was supposed to be the highest revenue month that we had ever had in the history of SurePoint, with the backlog that we had. And then all of a sudden, in mid-March or so, the pandemic hits, and there's so much uncertainty, and everything kind of slows down and comes to a screeching halt very quickly. And we were looking at, how do you survive this thing? I was a part of a few peer groups virtually, and I was isolated in an apartment in Grand Prairie because I wasn't feeling very well, so I had to get away from my family. And so I'm staying up there. I'm on these peer groups, and everybody is talking about how do you survive this? Like, how do you survive this as an organization?
Mm-hmm.
And it was reduce capital, which makes sense, right? You keep cash, you get your costs down, you do what you can to keep your organization alive. And so we had kind of gone through the same process in our circumstance, or our case. It was people. Like, our biggest overhead is human beings by far, and so it meant that we were going to have to let a bunch of folks go. And so we kind of agonized on it for a few weeks, and we spent some time, and we made a list of people that we were going to let go. And on a Friday, we finalized it, myself, our CFO, and our young VP. And Friday morning, we finalized it. Monday, Tuesday, we're going to start making some phone calls and having some tough conversations with some folks. And Friday night, I called Cam and Kevin, said, don't let anyone go. It was just after supper, and I was like, don't let anyone go. Like, I said, for one thing, I said, we don't have enough information to make the right decision. We don't know if this is going to last 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. We don't know if half the population is going to die, or everyone's going to die, or no one's going to die. I said, we don't know the outcome. What we do know is that people are being asked to go home and stay in their houses. They can't go on dates with their spouses. They can't go for dinner with their parents. They can't have coffees. They have no way to get out and function in a normal way. There's no healthy coping mechanisms. And I said, so nothing is normal to anybody. And we say we care. We're never going to get a better opportunity to prove it than right now. Plus, we have a playbook to go back to. In 2013, when we were in trouble, we went to the team and we asked them for help. And that's the reason we survived. It's the only reason that we survived, in my opinion, was because we went and asked them for help, told them the truth, and it was there. And so I said, next Monday, we're going to have a town hall, and we're going to have a series of town halls. Mm-hmm. And we're going to say this, going to say, we made a decision not to let anyone go yet. And we will, if we need to, if at some point we have to, then we'll let everybody know ahead of time that it's coming, that we need to do some cost reduction, which means we're going to have to let some folks go. And I said, our goal was to try and keep as many people as possible for as long as possible. And if we all got to Christmas Day and we were in the same house and could buy your kid a present, it was a win. I said, no one's probably going to Disneyland, even if things open up. But the goal was for all of us to get through it. And so partway through, we go a couple of weeks and realize that, some of our folks are asking to be laid off. They're not getting paid. Most of our people were hourly employees, and they got paid if they go and fix something for a client. And we believed that our revenue could drop by 40%. It ended up dropping by 60 or more for a while. And so we're kind of agonizing on this now. We've got everyone, we've asked them to stay. We're not chasing people away, but we have folks who are leaving the organization to go and get CERP so that they can afford to eat. And the wage subsidy program came out, and we'd heard about it. And so I talked to our CFO and found out that we had qualified for it. And one day I had left the apartment and back home with my wife, and I'm in our office at home. And I mapped out this plan. Like, what if we guaranteed everybody a paycheck? If we used the Canadian wage subsidy to help us guarantee everyone a paycheck. So I called up our CFO and said, Cam, hey man, what do you think about this? What do you think about us guaranteeing every single person a paycheck? And he said, I love the idea, but we can't afford it. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I think we can. And I really had a napkin. I had written it out, and I was like, I think we can. And I said, if we can find a way, will you support it? Knowing, I told him, if you don't, the board's never going to support this. Do some modeling. And so Cam came back and said, yeah, I think there's a way we could do this. Could be tight. So I called the board, and I was all excited about it and said, hey, we've got this plan. Not only are we keeping people, we're going to guarantee everyone a paycheck. And the way that we had wanted to structure it was, we'd pay every first year apprentice $2,500 and every journeyman $5,000. And so second year get $3,000, third year get $3,500. And the concept was, if you got $2,500, CERB paid $2,000, the lowest pay you'd get is $2,000. And if you went to work in the field, because we were a necessary service, and so a lot of our folks did get to go to work. If they continued working, then they'd get paid for the hours that they worked. And so went to the board, came back, and they said that they would support it if we could afford it. And so I got together with a group on our team, I don't know, 15 or so people, and of our leaders, and I said, hey, what do you guys think about this plan? Like, we not only let's keep our folks, let's also guarantee them a paycheck. And everybody said yes. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world to say yes to. It feels so good. And then I said, but there is one problem. We can't afford it. The way that we're structured right now, we can't afford it. And what I'm about to ask might be the most meaningful thing that you do in your entire career. And everybody is going to have to sacrifice, and some more than others. It's not going to be fair. And if anybody in this room says no, then we will find a different way. We'll leave here and we'll find a different way to get through this. But I said, we're going to have to, all of us are going to have to sacrifice, and which meant pay cuts. And I said, I am willing to take a 50% pay cut for the duration of the wage subsidy program. And so everybody knew what I made. And so that became I said, that's the benchmark. If you're over that by $1,000 or $20,000 or $30,000, you have to come down to that number. And so the significance of that was our CFO, and we had two VPs that are still with us, and our CFO is as well. But the significance of that for them was that they're giving up 30% of their pay, 30 to 35% of their pay. And they're young, and they have young families, and they have SUVs and car payments and boats and houses, and they have way too much shit that they haven't. And they said yes. And so it took 15 minutes or 30 minutes, maybe somewhere in there, for everybody to agree to do this. And the entire organization ended up giving up. Our managers gave up between 15 and 20%, and the rest of the organization gave up 10% of their pay so that we could pull this off. And we did it for 7.5 months. We ran that model for 7.5 months, and Cam and I did for a couple more months after. But that's how we came through the pandemic. And it was hard. Like, looking back, and the stress, the financial stress was real. The organization, was really hurting coming out of it. Yeah. But I believe that it was one of the decisions that we made that has made SurePoint who we are today.
That is just so phenomenal. Just two huge crises, and the organization pulled through on a value of we care. That is just so cool. So looking back in your career as a leader, and the type of leader that we would like to label an extraordinary leader, because it's rare. It's really rare that people are this value-based and make such pivotal changes and results in an organization based on values. What advice would you give any other good enough leader who wants to become a great leader?
I think the thing that holds us all back, and certainly does even me today, is fear. And a lot of it isn't even fear of failure as much as it is fear of judgment. It's my own insecurities get in the way. And you had touched on this right at the beginning of this conversation, was something to the effect that as leaders, we often believe we have to have all the answers. And I don't understand why. I don't understand why that is. I think one of the advantages I had is I had a low business acumen as far as, structurally how organizations should run or function. But I think I told you one of the things I like to say is I had an advantage. I wasn't smart enough to go to university. And so I didn't get pre-programmed. I didn't know how bad it could be. And that ended up, or how bad it was really. And that ended up being an advantage. But I think that the number one thing that I've seen in leaders, and that I certainly struggle with, is that fear of judgment, and that fear of, what if I don't have the answer? And I'm supposed to be a strong leader, and I'm supposed to know, and I'm supposed to be confident. And I did learn this throughout the years. It's absolutely fine for me to be vulnerable and to share if I got something going on in my life and I meet with the team and we do a check-in and I'm feeling anxiety. It's okay for me to say, hey, I'm feeling some anxiety, or, we're facing a challenging situation and say, there's some uncertainty. I'm feeling a bit scared here. What I can't do is leave that on the team. I can't leave it there. I follow up with, I'm feeling some anxiety, or I have some fear or some uncertainty. I don't know how we're going to get through it. I just know we will. And I have always known that we will. And so I would encourage leaders to trust their team, to be vulnerable, to be themselves. I mean, the hardest thing in the world to do, it seems, is to be who you really are. And I had wore so many masks for most of my life. And I don't know if we wouldn't have faced those crises if I would have ever had the courage to do what I did. And as you know, I actually learned this and gained the courage from a personal experience a few years earlier, where I woke up on a bathroom floor with an almost overwhelming desire to end my life. And I reached out for help. And for the first time in my life, I told another human being the truth about how I was thinking and feeling. And that man helped me. He didn't judge me. He actually helped and supported. And so when we went into 2013, and I'm now the CEO of the organization, and we are literally months away from death, is how I looked at it. I knew that my best decisions, trying to figure everything out on my own, led me to a place on a bathroom floor where I was contemplating ending my life. And I knew that if I tried to figure it out on my own, that SurePoint would die. And I also knew that when I reached out for help, the help was there, and there were people that supported me and loved me and cared about me and helped me, get back on the right path and have a life better than I could have ever imagined. And so I just took that experience and just brought it into SurePoint. And I looked at the two things in the same kind of lens. So
yeah, that is so powerful to, that story about the bathroom floor, and then transferring that knowledge into the 2013 experience, and then that set you up for everything you changed and shifted to get through COVID with everybody intact, or almost everybody intact. So that was so strong. But are there two things that you said that are really, really struck me? The one was obviously being vulnerable, being authentic, being you just makes you a stronger leader. Because fundamentally, I mean, leadership is just another job, and that is instilling leadership and greatness, achieving results through other people. And it's just people leading people. We don't become something other than just a person when we are leading another team. So that authenticity and vulnerability is super important. And then the other thing that you said that really, really struck me was to be vulnerable, but don't dump it on the team. Don't leave it with them. I was like, I don't know, but we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I often say that, it's not fair for a leader to vomit on their team, and there's a line. But something that I don't understand is why, as we elevate in our careers, we get fancier titles and we get more pay. And I've been very blessed to move from a farm kid into a trade, into the CEO of SurePoint. And I don't know where it happens or why it happens, but oftentimes I've found, in just hanging out with some of the folks that I know who have moved up, why there's this belief that we have to be so different. Like, we have to know more, we have to dress different, we have to act different, we have to do all these things. And it just layered more, for me, it just layered more and more and more masks on me, until, oftentimes I've ended up at these places in my life trying to figure out who the hell I really am. And I have to go all the way back, and it's happened at various levels, at various stages of my life. That when I tell people, I like to say, be real, be you. Like, oftentimes, I didn't even truly know who I was. And so I think that's a challenge for human beings in general. And as leaders, I think that we often, layer on more and more masks, because we have this belief that we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to act different. We're supposed to look different. I used to wear a sports jacket and dress slacks, and I felt so uncomfortable in it. And you probably never saw me dressed that way. And I was like, I only did that because I thought that's what I was supposed to do to be a good leader, to be respected, to be admired. and learn that that's actually, if I tell people, if you're comfortable in a suit, I think that people who wear suits look awesome. I'm not comfortable in a suit. And so part of me being me and me being real isn't, it's not about the clothes that I wear. It's about how I feel. And so my suggestion to other leaders would be so it's okay to be you. As a matter of fact, it's more than okay to be you. And it's likely necessary.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because people connect with authenticity a lot quicker, and they build trust with authenticity a lot quicker when somebody has a lot of masks, and you get sort of radio static in the vibe between you. It's like, oh dear. It doesn't work. It simply doesn't work, right?
Absolutely.
Great. And then my final question for you is, thank you so much first for sharing so frankly and so openly with a whole crowd that you don't know. It's much appreciated. If you had to become famous for a quote about leadership, what will it be?
For a quote about leadership?
Yeah, the Trevor Muir quote about leadership.
The Trevor Muir quote about leadership.
Yes.
I talk about vulnerability a lot, and I am on a mission to personally get to know me more, and I think to be a good human, to be your best self, to truly be able to love everybody in your life more, and to do better for for yourself, your family, your community, your business, for all of those things. I think it starts there, and it really is about becoming who you are. And I think that there's a journey to that, to be honest with you. And if you want to improve every area of your life, including your business, then go on that journey.
Go on the journey of continuous self-discovery.
Yes,
get
absolutely.
to know yourself. Yeah.
Get to know yourself. And I tell people this, I speak on some of this stuff, and I will say, and this hit me recently, actually, not that many months ago, that we every one of us loves somebody. Everybody loves somebody, and every one of us is loved by somebody. But I think the number one challenge for human beings is that we don't love ourselves often. And I say, if you want to change your life, and you want to change the life of those you love the most, then love yourself more. And I think that's easier said than done. But that is, I say, no matter how much you love yourself more. Learn to become selfishly selfless, because it will have huge dividends, and it'll have major impact on everybody that you interact with.
That is fantastic. I love that. Yes, it was leadership. In Sage and Summit, our philosophy is that to become a great leader is 65 to 70% an inward job, looking inside yourself and being comfortable, because that's the way you build confidence and trust with other people. Trevor, thank you so very much for sharing this a little bit more than half an hour. I think we went over time.
That's fine.
It's probably one of the shortest conversations we've had.
That's right, exactly.
That's right. Thank you so much for your time. It's much appreciated. And we'll connect soon.
Yeah, thank you.